Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here, and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. Today we got 10 out of 10 masterpiece fragrances. These are masterpieces to me. I'm not saying they should be masterpieces to you. I think the term masterpiece when it comes to fragrances is going to be subjective. You could have an agreed upon status amongst a populace, so to speak, but still doesn't necessarily make it a masterpiece. I mean, it's what you consider to be a masterpiece. But I consider these 10 fragrances I have here to be masterpieces, meaning there is nothing I would change about them. I think they are perfect the way they are. If they did change, they could potentially get better and remain a better masterpiece, or they could get worse, and I would not call them a masterpiece anymore. But as far as I'm concerned, the way they are, as it stands right now, as I have them in my collection, they are masterpieces. I've done a list like this before. This is a completely different list. It's 10 more, pretty much gonna be fragrances I've acquired after I made that original video, masterpiece video, which I think was summertime of last year. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, so in no particular order, first up from the house of Louis Vuitton, we have got Pacific Chill. Come on, focus, thank you. First up, Louis Vuitton Pacific Chill. So this one, I've talked about this quite a bit on this channel. What's special about this one is I went into a Louis Vuitton store one day with the intent to buy a fragrance and also check out this one because it was new at the time. But I pretty much thought I was gonna grab one of the other ones, particularly Afternoon Swim. Then I smelled this one, and it beat out every other fragrance there. And this is my first and still to this point only Louis Vuitton fragrance, but this is wonderful. I love the citrus opening of this. I get more of a lemony kind of smell, but it's just this bouquet of fruits, kind of subtropical fruits to an extent, and a vegetal base. And perfect summer fragrance. Still my best summer designer release of the previous year. Looking forward to see what comes out this year. I normally did not really care for fresher, warmer weather fragrances, but I've kind of really dove into that because I have found higher quality ones, and now I really like fresher fragrances, and this is definitely one of the top ones on the list, and this is a perfect 10 out of 10 fragrance for me. I wouldn't change a thing about it. So once again, from the house of Louis Vuitton, this is Pacific Chill. All right, next one's coming from the house of Wilhelm Parfumerie. This is Morning Chess. Wilhelm Parfumerie, Morning Chess. Getting some focus issues today. But listen, I had discovered this fragrance like over 2 years ago. Knew I wanted it, knew I liked it, but didn't consider it a masterpiece at the time, and I kind of slept on it for a while. It's also one that does tend to sell out on discounters, and I did want to get it for a discounted rate because I knew you could, but I finally got it in, I don't know what, maybe a month ago or something like that. And honestly, I just didn't know it was as good as it was. I knew I liked it, but once I kind of got it and really started to become familiar with it, blown away by it. I'm like, oh, this is definitely a masterpiece fragrance. Yes, it has similarities to a Ventus, but it doesn't smell like a Ventus. The similarity is kind of in the bergamot, to my nose, in the opening. But it's the galbanum and Tuscan leather combination that this fragrance has. I don't know what it is about it, but I can't get enough of it. I love that bitter green earthiness that comes from the galbanum, along with just that leather, just adding this another layer of depth to it. And then it just kind of has a patchouli, ambery, dried down. But honestly, I think that bitter green really just kind of takes over for the most part of the fragrance. And I don't know what it is, man. I can't get enough of it. I love it. This fragrance is perfect to me. I wouldn't change a thing about it. So Morning Chess, masterpiece, well done. Once again, from the house of Wilhelm Parfumerie, this is Morning Chess. All right, next one's coming from the house of Le Labo, and this is Tabac 28. Le Labo Tabac 28. I've told the story about how I got this fragrance, but I'm gonna tell it again because I think that kind of plays into why I would consider this a masterpiece fragrance. I was in my local Bloomingdale's, really just kind of checking out what was there and chatting with some of the people I have a connection with there, just kind of talking about life and fragrances, so to speak. And I asked, did they have this because at the time I know it was being sold, and it's only sold like a couple of times a year, and it's exclusively usually in Miami. But I asked them, did they have this? And they said, yeah, we do have it. So I was like, let me get my nose on it. Bought it right there on the spot. And I had to rearrange some finances to make that happen. I don't normally do that. And I had no intent of buying a fragrance that day. This impressed me just that much. This is rum-soaked tobacco. That's the best way, most simple way I can describe it. There's some other facets to it, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Rum-soaked tobacco. This fragrance just makes me think you are celebrating a successful venture, successful quarter. You're celebrating something successfully, but as a man in a cigar lounge with a high-end top shelf liquor or something like that. That's what this fragrance makes me think of. I think it is awesome. Wouldn't change a thing about it. Once again, from the house of Le Labo, this is Tabac 28. All right, next one's coming from the house of Amouage, and we have got Beach Hut Man. Amouage, Beach Hut Man. This is definitely one of those ones that is definitely subjective to me, because while I do know there are people that definitely like this fragrance and others that, find it to be a little bit too much, I don't know how many would really consider it a masterpiece, but I don't know. This one just speaks to me. It's basically spicy, earthy mint, and I mean slap you in your face spicy, earthy mint. Very green and fresh, a little bit woody, and there's just this spicy element to it, even though there's not even any spicy notes necessarily listed. But I love the way this comes across. Puts me in the mindset of a barbershop fragrance, even though it doesn't really smell like one. I think this one just kind of speaks to the type of fragrances I kind of grew up with. Reminds me a little bit of my grandfather and some of the fragrances he wore, and that's why I like this one. And I love every aspect of it. I love it when I wear it. I wouldn't change a thing, so that means, hey, for me, it's a masterpiece. If I don't want to change anything about the fragrance, it's a 10 out of 10. If I have no complaints, why would I call it anything else? Masterpiece fragrance. Once again, from the house of Amouage, this is Beach Hut Man. All right, next one's coming from the house of Xerjoff, and this is Kemi. Xerjoff's Kemi. So this one here, I had sampled this sometime last year. I don't remember when. And I had bought like 15 samples, so it was in a lot of samples. This is one of the ones that stuck out to me. One of the ones I definitely marked down is, hey, I definitely want to get that fragrance. Interestingly enough, though, I didn't have a sprayer sample. It was just a vial sample, so all I could do was kind of dab it on my skin. And I saw an opportunity to get this for a good price, and I did. I sprayed it on a strip, and I was kind of like, man, it's a little bit more animalic than I remember, but it's on a strip. Let me try it on skin. Sprayed it on skin, instantly fell in love with it even more, and I'm like, yo, I know this is animalic and sweet. It has a very nice kind of sweet candied caramel sweetness to it, and a lot of animalic notes. More so kind of barnyard, not really pissy kind of smell, but kind of barnyard, hay, earthy, animalic smell to it. But it's more sweet than anything, but it's just got this balance to it that I absolutely love. As far as I'm concerned, there is oud in this also. This is the sexiest oudy fragrance I've gotten my nose on to date, and I love every aspect of it. As far as I'm concerned, masterful blend, hence making this a masterpiece fragrance. So once again, from the house of Xerjoff, this is Kemi. All right, next one's coming from the house of Chanel. This is Le Lion de Chanel. Chanel's Le Lion de Chanel. Another interesting backstory about this one. When I first kind of got my nose on any of the exclusive Chanel fragrances, Coromandel and Sycamore were right there at the top of the list. I was like, all right, one of those two are gonna be the first Chanel fragrances I pick up, and then this one came out and I got around to getting my nose on this one too, and I just said, I don't know, it might be Le Lion. Ultimately, Le Lion won out, obviously. It's the only one I have so far from the exclusives line, but this is wonderful to me. Big blast of labdanum. It's just a lot of labdanum. That's kind of the main thing you get from this. So it's ambery, but it's also quite resinous, very smoky, a little bit animalic. I think some people just kind of experience it in a way that's maybe a little bit sweaty. I don't really get too much of that, but for whatever reason, this fragrance just speaks to me. I love how it smells. I know some people say it's quite similar to Coromandel. In a way it is. It's kind of like a beefier, more resinous version of Coromandel, if that makes sense, but it's not the same thing. It's definitely not the same thing. Even though I don't own it, I do have a good sample of it that I can, test it against it, and they're not the same, but I wouldn't change a thing about this fragrance. I think it's awesome just the way it is. So it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece for me. Once again, from Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. All right, next one's coming from the house of Day 3 Fragrances. This is Bani. Day 3 Fragrances, Bani. What can I say about this scent other than what I have said pretty much every time I talk about it, is this is a perfect vacation mindset scent for me, even though I wouldn't only use it for that. It's just a fragrance that puts you on the beach as far as I'm concerned. You've got mango leaf, got quite a bit of coconut in this. There's some florals. I get a lot of jasmine in this, but it's not like overly too strong. And then like sugarcane and musk. It's got a sugary, tropical beachside vibe. And I love that about this fragrance. I tend to really like fragrances that paint that picture in my mind, but not all of them are done that well, in my opinion, where this one is done masterfully. So all I can say is this is the perfect vacation fragrance for me, and I have no complaints about it. Therefore, that makes it 10 out of 10 masterpiece in my book. So once again, from the house of Day 3 Fragrances, this is Bani. All right, next one's coming from the house of Tiziana Terenzi, and we have got Ursa. Tiziana Terenzi Ursa. Now, when I first got this fragrance, it was not a blind buy. I had put my nose on it before. I knew this was one I really, really liked, but I didn't consider it a masterpiece yet. I wore it a couple times, and each time I wore it, it just got better and better and better, even though I already really held it in high regard. And I'm just like, you know what? I think this might be a masterpiece for me because I can't, it's intoxicating for me. When I wear it, I love smelling it, and I hope it doesn't stop. And even when I just kind of smell it from the atomizer, I'm just like, this is wonderful. You got booziness. I think there's some rum in this. There's dried fruit, so a little bit of a fruitiness. It's smoky. There's incense in this. There's a kind of a dry woodiness. I think there's some oud in this. There's also this leatheriness that's in here. It's a very complex fragrance, but it's just masterfully crafted, and I love it. So I'm just like, hey, I think this is a 10 out of 10 for me, because do I have any complaints? Is there anything I think this thing needs to do differently? The answer is no. So you know what? 10 out of 10, masterpiece fragrance, Ursa. Everybody's not going to agree. This is definitely one that is subjective. People that do like it, you definitely just, look, you got to get your nose on it first, because incense, resins, oud, leather, dried fruits, rum, that's not something that's necessarily going to always be a favorite to a lot of people. And even if they do like it, I don't think many would consider it a masterpiece. You just have to really like those notes. I tend to. So that's why I'm putting this one on the masterpiece list. Once again, from Tiziana Terenzi, this is Ursa. All right, next one's coming from the house of Arabian Oud. We have got Blue Oud. Arabian Oud, Blue Oud. Now this one here, what can I say about it other than I call it a symphony of oud. It may not be the most complex oud fragrance on the market, but what it is it's one of the best value, high quality oud fragrances you can get on the market that I've discovered, at least to this point. You can get this and the raw oud oil, which I'm not exactly sure what the size of that is, but maybe it's like 10 milliliters or something like that. But you get both of them in their gift set for $400. That is a major value, and there is real oud in this. But I call it a symphony of oud because with the Cambodian oud and the Indian oud and the musk accord that's in this, I mean, you just get this movement of, notes that every time I kind of just analyze it when I'm wearing it, I feel like I'm getting a different experience every time. I may be tripping. It still smells like the same fragrance, but I feel like I can pick out different facets at any given time depending on the air composition around me. That's just how I experience the fragrance. I think that makes it a masterpiece because it's just this very complex and different wearing experience every time, even though I'm smelling the same thing. So I think this is just one that if you like oud, it's kind of a must-have almost, just for that reason alone. It may not be the best one ever, but it definitely is one that is an exciting wearing experience. So once again, from the house of Arabian Oud, 10 out of 10 fragrance for me, this is Blue Oud. All right, and last but certainly not least, from the house of Ormond Jane, this is Montabaco Intensivo. Ormond Jane, Montabaco Intensivo. Can I say that this is probably one of my most successful blind buys, if not the most successful blind buy? I told the story about how I learned about this from Equality Fragrances, so shout out to him once again. But the thing about it is, it was still a blind buy. I had nothing to base it off of. I really hadn't gotten my nose on some of the other Montabaco fragrances, even though I've had access to them. This is the only one I have not seen, or one of the ones I have not seen, even though it actually appears to be one of the more popular ones over Verano. But since I got this, out of me being a guy that tries to wear as many different fragrances as possible, that's a pretty significant dent given the fact I've had this for maybe 6 months now, comparatively to always getting new fragrances and trying to wear those. That's not insignificant of a dent given my wearing patterns. So you can say that, hey, I have definitely given this a lot of wears given that, and I love wearing it. It blew my mind when I got it. I'm like, this is such a masterful creation. You got a cooling air accord. There's some nice cooling spices. I experience a lot of tea in this fragrance, so it has this calming effect. The tobacco in here is like clean and leafy, and I love the cedar coming from the isogamma super that is put into this fragrance, and also you just got some nice spices as well. I might have said that already, but this fragrance just blows my mind as to how unique it is compared to everything else that's on the market, and the dent doesn't lie. I know it's a small dent, but the dent doesn't lie. So this fragrance is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Once again, from the house of Ormond Jane, this is Montabaco Intensivo. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Those are 10 more masterpieces that I have in my collection. Hey, let me know down in the comments below what some of your favorite fragrances that you consider masterpieces. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. And hey, do you consider some of these to be masterpieces as well if you happen to own them? Appreciate you guys watching all the way into the end. Remember to be well and smell well. And I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.